New questions today about the cases against these people. The 6 officers facing charges over Freddie Gray's death while in police custody. Now, the first case, you may remember, ended in a mistrial. The second one ended with an acquittal of Officer Edward NERO. He is the one, he was one of those cops who arrested Gray. Now, Gray's family's attorney, turns out he was okay with the NERO decision. Here's what he had to say.
I have to commend Judge Williams on not being influenced by public opinion. You know, it's a very, very difficult job to sit as a judge under these enormously stressful conditions. And once again, Barry Williams has shown that he is a fair and impartial man, and he showed tremendous courage in ruling against public opinion.
Now, many people are saying that the prosecutor, you see on the screen, Marilyn Mosby, overcharged and got overzealous. Remember that press conference. Now, 2 of the officers of the 6, they're suing Mosby directly for defamation and invasion of privacy. Apparently, they believe not only was there defamation as a cost, but also some of the documents were unsealed. Now, you know the attorney Murphy that we just heard, who was representing the Gray family, for literally a defense for an attorney representing the family to come out and say the judge got it right because that guy, in this case Officer NERO, he brought him to the van, sat him down, but he wasn't in the van when he wasn't, you know, seatbelt buckled or whatever, and he could have been looking at 10 years. It just seems that the DA in this case is so over her head. And then, you know, the cameras went on. She said what the people wanted to hear, but you still got to prove it.
You do have to prove it. And so, you know, is she getting justice for the Gray family? Well, maybe yes so far, you know, in the wrong way. You know, this officer was acquitted, and what Mr. Murphy is saying is that he was rightfully acquitted. It's, I'm sure, not his opinion with respect to some of the other officers who have been indicted and who will face trial. But the grandstand, you know, we've talked about this before, you know, with prosecutors. The grandstanding, the
and
coming
by the way,
out
Officer NERO is the officer that was highlighted in the yellow, and that's him in civilian clothes right after the acquittal. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's right. The grandstanding, you know, coming out way too early before you know the evidence and making these public comments and making these promises that you may not be able to keep is really counterproductive and is prosecutors overstepping the bounds of their office.
And the judge in question, African American, in this case in Baltimore, who found in effect for Officer NERO. Now, again, 2 of the officers suing directly the DA for the handling of this. Is there, for her at least, can she make the argument, yes, 2 cases, we've got 5 more to go. The hardest ones to convict have already happened. The better odds come forward, or is she in a box that she can't get out of?
Well, let's stop and look at the grand jury system, okay? A grand jury indicted these people. Right? So if a grand jury indicted these people, we have to reevaluate the grand jury system. But we also have to take a step back and look at this case and assume that these people were not police officers. If they were our clients, it's a lot harder for that judge to acquit. So people have to understand that when you are law enforcement, you waive a jury with a reason, because generally judges are going to be more lenient. That does not mean that this outcome is not the proper outcome. It's just that when you're the Central Park 5, you probably don't get acquitted. You probably end up doing 15, 20 years in prison.
You look at what Officer NERO did, by no debate as to his role that day with Freddie Gray. He escorted him. He put him in there. He was never represented that he stayed in the van.
No.
There was another officer in the van whose day hasn't happened yet, who will have his day in court. But to charge him with the felony that she did, and that he could have been looking for 10 years, nobody thought that was right.
Well,
even the Gray family
I
attorney.
understand, and I agree with you 100%.
But
what I'm saying is, again, for the 99.9% of us, of all races and backgrounds who are not police officers, you have a much greater chance of not getting acquitted in that case under the same facts. For instance, if you look at Carlos Perez, who was charged with homicide with 4 other people who he had never met prior to going to court, when the FBI itself actually told the Bronx DA that he's not involved, he was still allowed to sit in prison for 15 years. So it's a lot more courage required for a judge to take an average citizen and apply that same standard. That same level of scrutiny should be given in each and every criminal case. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I want to get to Georgia now, where this taser death, caught by an officer's body camera, is generating a ton of questions.
Stop fighting! Stop fighting! stop resisting.
He's good now. Get all the weight in the world on him, man.
Now, the mother of the man called police herself for help. That's after her son was getting violent. Apparently, he took synthetic marijuana and apparently was having a bad reaction. They tased him repeatedly while he was handcuffed. He was resisting and fighting with them, so they kept on going. His parents just announced that they will seek federal charges if the county does not prosecute, and either way, they will file a civilian suit against the police. He was tased more than a dozen times, and at one point in the audio, if you listen, he says, "I give." Moreover, this obviously resulted in his death. I had an officer on last night, somebody who I respect, and I asked him, so where's the line? When can you tase? How many times can you tase? What if the guy's already handcuffed? What if you have a big police presence on the scene? You know, when do you tase? When do you use mace? And with due respect, I didn't get any of those answers clearly answered. Now, we know why tasers were put in place. They were to try and prevent going to a gun when the situation maybe didn't necessitate it. And I'm not trying to, in the comfort of an air-conditioned controlled studio, put myself there. But guys, there were multiple cops on the scene there. The mom's begging them to stop. She called them to the location. I know that doesn't mean that, you know, the gloves are off at that point, but he's cuffed. He says, I give it a certain way. They keep on going. Is it enough that he's not completely resisting? I mean, that he's continuing to resist in some capacity? That they just keep going, or no?
I mean, I guess to a certain extent it's a matter of degree. I have a real problem with repeatedly tasing somebody that you have cuffed. The danger to you is so much more ameliorated. You've got other officers on the scene. A man is cuffed. You have 5 officers around him. You can hold his legs down, hold his arms down, hold him down without hurting him, and he's going to calm down. I have a major problem with tasing him over 10 times while he's saying, I give.
You know, Mayor, there was another case that we were involved in as a broadcast station that we happened to be on a location we were recording for not this reason, but a person was pulled over for a DWI stop. He was cuffed, put in the back of a squad car. Now, when he's back of the squad car, starts kicking the back of the window out, okay? Officer goes in there, tells him to stop. Guy keeps trying to kick it, and he tases him and tases him and tases him and tases him, okay? Point being only, I don't know. I still don't know. After asking, I can't tell you how many people. Is there a number? Is there a setting that you have to stick to? When do you? When don't you? If you're cuffed when you're allowed to? I don't think it's clear. Well, I think it almost depends on the jurisdiction you're in. I think it depends on the precinct almost. I mean, I don't know where the line is.
The TASER manual itself gives you guidelines of how to safely use the TASER. And there's a debate as to whether there is safe uses of TASER. TASERs cannot be used on people who are apparently elderly, who have medical conditions.
But how do you know if you're a cop? You
well,
go there
what
to
you
a
do
certain
know,
place.
if
How do you know if he's deranged male,
if you're
he's
a
got a
cop,
heart condition, how?
It doesn't matter. If the person is in custody, they're restrained. Okay, even if the person's kicking the window out of the police car, what's the worst they can do at that point? What more can they do? Damage the car a little bit more? Let him do it. Let him kick himself out. Why are you tasing that person? Why are you tasing the kid in college who disagreed with Senator Kerry when he's running for president? He was no threat. He didn't need to be tased. So
Once
at some
you say,
point,
don't tase me, bro, you almost deserve
don't
it. Don't
tase me. And so at some point, though, you get to the place where the TASER, in my estimation, shouldn't be used at all. You have a man who's handcuffed. He's restrained. He's not a threat. Because you simply say stop struggling doesn't mean the person's struggling. And by the way, if you put that officer in handcuffs and tased him, I'm quite sure he would be moving around involuntarily as well. I don't think it's reasonable then to turn around and tell him stop moving each time I tase you.
To be fair to the cops, they were responding to a call. They didn't just willy-nilly go there. The mom asked them, please come.
But not to come and kill her son and not to come and tase her son.
Nobody wanted the son to die.
And if this continues, though, what happens is people stop calling the police, and then we all lose, because now what should have been handled and probably could have been handled by a social worker without him getting killed results in his death.
I don't know, but I do know this.
Can you make a rule?
Is this something you actually can? I don't know.
Look, we want our officers to have a certain amount of discretion to protect themselves and to protect us. Nobody is saying no to that. But there does come a point, for example, when somebody is cuffed and you have other less dangerous means to restrain him, that those should come first before you're tasing him.
It kind of evoked, for me at least, what we saw out in Staten Island.
Right.
And obviously without a taser, but still the questions of appropriate force. But in real time, geez,
Well, here's a
I'll
young man
acknowledge
who's
it's tricky.
dead. You know.
All right, this one, fascinating case. If you like sci-fi here, I think there's a little bit of it too. Chicago Police Department. Obviously, huge violent issues going on in that city. And they're taking a page out of the Minority Report. Remember the Tom Cruise movie? That is, it tries to rein in gun violence by predicting who will get shot and who will be doing the shooting. Is this a good use of technology or a little bit too much Big Brother?